During the 2016 election, one of the most effective memes pushed by President Trump was his labeling of establishment politicians, including establishment Republicans, as being all talk and no action. What did he mean by this? Well, Congress had been effectively gridlocked since the 1990s, with bipartisan agreement only coming when it was time for more wars in the Middle East. Trump was rightly blasting Republicans as ineffective, incapable of fighting back against President Obama's far-left agenda, despite controlling the House and Senate for much of his presidency. Trump promised to be a new brand of Republican, a right-winger that actually accomplished what the base wanted. Gone were supposed to be the days of making grand promises, failing to deliver on them, and then begging for just one more term a few years later. And Trump has delivered on some things as president. We've avoided a full-scale invasion of Syria and deposition of Bashar al-Assad. We've managed to stay out, for the most part, of Middle East conflagration. We've cut taxes, Trump has presided over a great economy, and he's gotten 2 nominees on the Supreme Court. But all of those things are relatively minor when it comes to the biggest issues facing the U.S. Issues like immigration, political polarization, and violence committed by the radical left. On these issues, we've seen a great deal of talk from President Trump, but we haven't seen a great deal of action. I'm making this video as someone that supports the America First, Make America Great Again agenda. The double-digit IQ posting that is bound to take place in the comments. You ain't no real Trump supporter, you're a gosh dang libtard. It's as dumb as it sounds, and clearly not true. I'm making this video because I want the America First agenda to succeed, and for it to succeed, Trump's base needs to apply pressure and remind him why we voted for him. Conservatives have a very bad tendency to cast their ballots, then trust the process and hope everything turns out okay. This is a mistake. In order for politicians to be compelled to make hard decisions, they need to feel pressure from their base. This is a general rule. Remember that no politician, Trump included, is automatically entitled to your support regardless of what they do in office. In today's video, I'm going to explain the 4 areas where Trump has offered us a lot of talk, but no action. These are issues where he suffered the bad press and media critique, but he hasn't done anything to make it worth it. He's essentially own-goaled himself, invited the media attacks, and then done nothing constructive. Trump has considered, felt, deliberated, mulled about, thought about, weighed, leaned toward, proposed, announced, inclined, recommended, suggested, and seemed interested in a lot of really fantastic ideas, but ultimately never executes on the vast majority of them. The 4 areas we'll be talking about today are Antifa and the Proud Boys, South Africa, birthright citizenship, and the border wall. Let me know in the comments right down below if you think there are any topics I missed or that I should talk about in a separate video. But before we talk about today's topics, let's talk about your online privacy and security. With Christmas approaching, you're probably looking forward to relaxing with family and friends. Unfortunately, hackers don't take time off. Just a few weeks ago, it was discovered that a security vulnerability on Tumblr made it possible for hackers to make off with users' login credentials and other private user information. Whenever you use a device, your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, on a public Wi-Fi network, you're putting yourself at risk of having your personal information, including financial data, logged and stolen. You need to protect yourself online, and that's why I use Virtual Shield, the easiest VPN in the world to use. It's one of the fastest VPNs out there, and their strict no-log policy protects all of its users from data breaches. With Virtual Shield, you have the right to remain private. This Black Friday month, Virtual Shield is offering 40% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons. Plus, don't forget about IdentiSafe, which gives you the ability to block off computer microphone and camera access from any unwanted spies and hackers. There's no reason not to keep you and your family safe online, protecting yourself from entities public and private. Stop hackers and spies in their tracks with Virtual Shield, and keep all of your browsing data private, the way it should be. VirtualShield.com/allsup today for 40% off. They're the only VPN company that I trust. Alright, as you can most certainly tell, I'm still slightly under the weather, but I'm hoping to be better by next week when I can make my return to streaming right here on this channel, after finally recovering from a 3-month streaming ban, so hopefully you will tune in for that. Let's begin today by talking about Antifa and the Proud Boys. In an interview about a week ago, President Trump commented on Antifa, the group of violent left-wing radicals that roam the streets, beating Trump supporters, white people, and defenseless women. When asked by the Daily Caller about the rising threat of Antifa violence against conservatives, right-wingers, and white people, President Trump had the following to say, quote, "These people, like the Antifa, they better hope that the opposition to Antifa decides not to mobilize, because if they do, they're going to be tougher, much stronger, potentially much more violent, and Antifa's going to be in big trouble. But so far they haven't done that, and that's a good thing." End quote. In a vacuum, this statement may seem fine. If right-wingers did organize street militias to fight back against Antifa, I have no doubt they would win. When this has been done in limited circumstances by groups like Proud Boys, the right has won almost every single time. But if this becomes more common, we would essentially be in a civil war that the left has almost single-handedly provoked. But here's the thing. There has been mobilized opposition to Antifa. There have been conservatives and people on the right that have decided, no, I'm not going to allow Trump supporters to be beaten in the streets. I'm not going to allow violent communists to shut down Americans' right to free speech. One of the groups most effective at countering Antifa has been the Proud Boys. From everything I've seen, the Proud Boys don't go out looking for violence. They act in self-defense, and they show a great deal of restraint. Proud Boys have defended Republicans and conservatives at dozens of events across the country, including several events right here in the Northwest that I've witnessed firsthand. Proud Boys are unapologetically pro-Trump, and they, like the establishment GOP, see identity politics as an evil tool of the left. I disagree with them on that point, but at the end of the day, if it came down to it, I would have no problem standing shoulder to shoulder with the Proud Boys against the Antifa mobs. So this organization, full of guys brave and willing to show their faces to defend Trump supporters in the street, how were they treated by the Trump administration? Well, according to President Trump's FBI, the Proud Boys, again, an organization that very publicly opposes identity politics, is a, quote, extremist group with, quote, ties to white nationalism. And this is coming from internal FBI documents, not hearsay or rumors. The idea that the FBI is acting as an arbiter of what ideologies are and are not acceptable should disturb you. White nationalist, as we know, is a slur used by the far left to denigrate any white person on the right that expresses views they don't like. The Proud Boys are all about praising capitalism and standing up for the Constitution, and they are considered an extremist hate group, so why not just go ahead and label the entirety of the GOP a hate group? Seriously, why not? Why not label the GOP itself a hate group? The values the Proud Boys espouse aren't that much further to the right than the GOP platform. What are you waiting for, FBI? It actually does surprise me that President Trump's own FBI is labeling groups of his own biggest supporters as dangerous extremists and assisting in their prosecution. Another example of this is RAM, the Rise Above movement. These guys formed a fight club in Southern California where they would meet up and practice fighting and training with each other. They went to political events, much in the same style as the Proud Boys, and at those events they defended Trump supporters against violence perpetrated by Antifa. You can probably guess how this story ends. President Trump's own FBI indicted 4 of them in October. They were accused of, get this, going to Charlottesville. The FBI accused them of inciting a riot. Again, the Charlottesville rally was legally permitted. The FBI's evidence of them causing violence is the fact that they had their hands and knuckles taped. Well, hate to break it to you, FBI, but when radical Antifa leftists are throwing piss bottles and bricks and rocks at people, and the police are refusing to intervene and protect people, you might want to have your knuckles taped and be prepared for legal self-defense. These guys were thrown in prison for the great crime of being prepared to defend themselves when the police wouldn't against far-left Antifa thugs. President Trump's FBI is throwing his most ardent supporters in prison for defending themselves against Antifa. Let that sink in. Where are the indictments against Antifa, Trump? Where is your DOJ prosecuting the people that attacked Tucker's home or the violent leftists that attacked your supporters on inauguration? Oh, that's right. They all walked free. Your federal prosecutors are dropping all of those charges, just like they dropped the charges against the man caught on camera sucker punching me in the face at inauguration. For Trump to talk about the potential backlash to Antifa being severe, bigly, believe me, is in extremely bad taste at this point. Because your people have fought back, Trump. Your supporters have fought back, Trump. And all you've done is preside over an FBI that calls us extremists and throws our guys in jail for defending themselves. Let's move on. Item 2 is South Africa. In late August, Trump put out a very good tweet. He said the following, quote, I've asked Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to closely study the South African land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. The South African government is now seizing land from white farmers. End quote. Of course, this was very good news. White farmers in South Africa are facing unprecedented levels of violence, often in their own homes, and the United States has done nothing to apply pressure to the South African government to crack down and put an end to the situation. Many hoped that with Trump's tweet in August, an investigation would be initiated, and more international attention would be drawn to the plight of the South African farmers. But as quickly as the tweet was posted, the story disappeared. It's been close to 3 months since Trump called attention to the issues of South African farm murders, and we aren't any closer to this State Department investigation or international action now than we were then. What has Trump done on South Africa since then? Well, diplomatically speaking, nothing. The only thing the administration has done that relates to South Africa is the nomination of Lena Marks, a handbag designer born in South Africa, to take over as the new ambassador to South Africa. Trump opened with great promise on South Africa, but nothing ended up coming of it. We've no timetable for this supposed investigation, no information about who will be involved, no indication that it's actually happening, nothing. It seems like Trump promised this investigation would take place because he knows it's something that would motivate his base, and then he forgot about it and did nothing. Speaking of making promises to motivate the base, that brings us to item 3, birthright citizenship. Remember right before the midterms when Trump put out his big announcement that he would be delivering a thorough executive order designed to change the federal government's interpretation of the 14th Amendment and no longer automatically give citizenship to the children of illegal aliens? I remember that too. And I remember Trump promising it would be done 2 weeks ago, but here we are. As soon as Trump indicated he would be issuing issuing this executive order, people immediately rallied to his side. Even establishment conservatives that usually prefer unlimited immigration agreed that birthright citizenship originated out of a misinterpretation of the Constitution. There's no reason for Trump not to issue this order. He has a favorable Supreme Court, and for the next 2 years, he won't be able to accomplish any sort of birthright citizenship fix legislatively. Unless they're concerned about the Supreme Court not being conservative enough, this delay doesn't make sense. Especially demoralizing about this one is the timing. This happened right before the midterms, when they were trying to rally votes. There are many people in Trump's base that are going to feel like he was just using them to get votes in the midterm and never actually intended on following through on his promise. To this day, we have no progress on the birthright citizenship executive order, and there's no rumor that it will be done anytime soon. And finally, that brings us to the border wall. That big, beautiful wall that Trump promised to build along the southern border, right? Well, we're still waiting. All we have right now is a fence, and the only funding that has been approved by Congress is funding that was specifically earmarked to repair and replace George Bush-era fencing, not building new walls. With the caravan amassing on the southern border, threatening to break through into the U.S., there's never been a better time to push for funding to begin building a safe, secure border wall that will last for generations to come. But instead, Trump has approved several budget deals so far in his presidency that did not include wall funding. Despite promising to not sign a budget that didn't fund the wall, Trump has done it now several times. If he'd really wanted wall funding, he could have told the Republican Congress and Republican Senate to include it in the budget and rammed it through, but he didn't. And now, with a Democrat-controlled House, the odds of him getting that funding are getting noticeably slimmer. Additionally, the military on the southern border, currently deployed to deal with the caravan, are being kneecapped by their commanding officers. According to military directives, soldiers will not be allowed to use force to defend the country, even as invaders, armed with rocks and weapons, climb the fence and run free into our country. Our military is specifically forbidden from using force. How crazy is that? Also, the troops currently on the border are going to be sent home in less than a month, according to a military spokesman. According to Lieutenant General Jeffrey Buchanan, Ground Force Commander of U.S. Northern Command, all of the troops are expected to be sent home by December 15th, so they can be home in time for Christmas. That's cute, General Buchanan, that you want your guys to be home in time for Christmas, but these are active duty soldiers that enlisted to defend their country. It's not a high school football team. They should be there until the threat is mitigated and the area is secured. And with several more caravans on their way from Mexico and Central America, that is not going to be for a very long time. Of course, we wouldn't need as many active duty soldiers on the border if we had a border wall. But until Trump either pushes that through during the lame duck session of Congress, or he uses executive authority to order the Department of Defense to build it, that wall will have to remain a fantasy. In review, Trump has done some good things, some great things in fact, but we're right to be disappointed and upset about the areas where he's failed, especially about the areas where he has overpromised and then failed. Politicians, Trump included, respond to pressure. They respond to their constituents, letting them know that if they don't do the right thing, they may be out of a job next election cycle. And that's the kind of pressure that we need to be applying if we want Trump to be a successful president and get good things done for the country. We know that he's surrounded by untrustworthy advisors and subversive elements, none of whom have his or the country's best interests at heart. Trump has been an all-talk, no-action leader when it comes to combating the violent far left, ending farm murders in South Africa, eliminating birthright citizenship, and permanently securing the southern border. Tweets are great for starting conversation. They're amazing for that. Tweets are good for scoring metapolitical points. But Trump is the president of the United States. He's the most powerful man in the world. It's way past time for him to realize that.